What's up, guys? Give it a minute. Let some people join. Get Glenn on here. What's going on, everybody?
Of course, the camera flipped on me. There we go.
What's up, Glenn?
How you doing?
I'm doing. I'm on the road on the way to Champlain. Give it a second. Let some people join.
All right. That sounds like a plan.
So how's your day going?
It is busy. Really busy. Excuse me for a minute. I gotta grab. I got a notepad here. Here we are. Yeah, I was just on the road. I just got back in, so I'm a little discombobulated at the moment. But yeah, I was just out fishing.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Oh, don't be. Post-front conditions. Yeah, but I still got a few.
Nice. Let me
still able to get a few. It was a little tough, but finesse tactics rule. So
yeah,
we was able to coax a few to bite today.
Nice.
How far is your drive?
It's like 5.5, 6 hours from where I live, because we got to stop to get gas. Let me pay some bills real quick. This podcast, Road to All American, episode 3. Thank everybody that has watched the previous 2 episodes. Today's episode features the legendary Glenn May of Bass Resource, and the podcast is brought to you by ROKFORM. Check them out, rockform.com. They make fantastic vehicle mounts. I'm using the system right now with the phone case, the magnet mount, and then I got the twist lock in the boat, so it's seamless transition. So all you bass boat guys out there running 75 and chop, you want your phone secure, check out ROKFORM. The mounts are fantastic. So yeah, Glenn, let's get into it. Were you so doing some finesse fishing? What lake were you on?
I was out on Potholes Reservoir today.
Nice.
Yeah, until the wind blew me off. But yeah, it was just some good fishing.
You shot some videos from there before, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember the name.
Yeah, I'm located up in Washington, and so a lot of my footage is shot all around Washington State. That's one of the lakes I fish.
Gotcha. So I got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Kick it off kind of like an interview back and forth.
By the way, stop right. I'm don't call me legendary. I'm not legendary. It's like, thanks, I appreciate it, but I'm just a regular fisherman, just like anybody else. Okay, I'm not a legend at all. So that's not.
but you started. But with that being said, which is like part of the first question too, you did start the biggest fishing website. Period. Like, I don't think I'm not being biased or anything, because I'm a member of Bass Resource, but there's a lot of fishing websites, but there aren't any as big as yours. So in that regard, you brought
this up. Okay, that's true. It is the largest.
Yeah, you can't deny it. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
So what made you want to create a website and a forum to begin with?
Oh goodness, you won't believe this. So I've been bass fishing since I could stand. Actually, I think before I could stand. And my original career was in video production, broadcast video and non-broadcast. And one day, I guess 1994 or 95 anyway, the web had just come out, and I saw this demonstration video from Microsoft. Had a little thumbnail video that's highly pixelated, digitized on the web page. And having just gone from the whole analog to digital transition in broadcast television, I recognized that. And I said, that's going to be big. That's going to be huge. I want to be on that train. But at that time, there wasn't any college or classes or anything you can take to learn how to design websites or code or anything. There was some books. So I picked up a few books and I taught myself HTML, JavaScript, web design, some Photoshop. And in doing so, I was learning how to build a website, and I decided to build one after my passion, which is bass fishing, just because that was the subject matter. And the idea here was to take that and go to Microsoft and say, look, here's what I can do, which is what I did. That was my resume. I went to Microsoft and I said, look, guys, you know this web thing, because it was new, right? This is 96, 95. The web only came out, www came out, I think, in 92, 90, 93. So I said, look, you guys know about this, but video, I know about video. You guys, not so much with video. It didn't look very good. So I'll do a deal with you. You teach me web stuff and I'll show you video stuff. What do you say? And they said, hey, you got a deal. So they hired me. And so I worked on their Windows Media team for 7 years. But anyway, when I got the job, I was like, all right, mission accomplished. The site did its job. I got the job I wanted. And I was going to close it down. But then I looked at the stats, and I got like 400 visitors a day, which back then was enormous.
Yeah.
It was huge. This is back in the days of 28.8, modems, And I said, oh, what the heck? It doesn't hurt to leave it up. This is kind of fun. So I left it up, and about a year or two later, I put the forums on there just to test more coding skills, really. But then that began to get popular, and I was like, it's kind of fun. So I just kept doing it. And that's kind of how it got started.
It's awesome. So basically, like, just took the initiative. So so basically, you're the first bass website.
There was one called the Bass Fishing Homepage, which was just a forum, and that got the forum. They started a few months before me as far as the forum aspect of it, but they didn't last too long. And as far as any of the websites at that time, it was just people with their personal geospace, type stuff. And
oh, yeah.
Hi, this is me. I like bass fishing, and here are my links. And that was it. So yeah, that was the reason I did that, and the reason why I created Bass Resources, because I couldn't find any information on the web about bass fishing, like how to do something. So I said, well, okay, if no one else is doing it, I guess I will. So that's kind of how it got going,
Awesome.
Yeah.
I never heard that story before. That's fantastic.
It was hilarious. I had all these links to all these different sites, and one of them I linked to a website called Honey Hole Magazine, which was an actual, down in Texas. It was a magazine publication called Honey Hole, plus they had a TV show, a weekly TV show down there. And I got an email from Deborah Dean, who was the owner of Honey Hole. And she said, well, first of all, who the heck are you? Second, why are you linking to me? And third, if you're going to link to me, you'd spell their name wrong. You need to do it this way. And I responded back. I said, well, I'm Glenn May. And if you don't like the way I linked to it, then tell me how to link it. Otherwise, don't complain. And she she emailed back. She said, Glenn, you and I are going to be friends. I like to shake someone's hand, and if I can look them in the eye and they look at me right back, then I know we're going to be good friends. And that started off, she was right. It started off a great friendship. And she gave me exclusive republishing rights to her magazine. Anything I wanted, I could put on my website. And I was the only person she ever let do that. And some of the articles are still on there today. But that gave me a big lift up as far as finding content and articles to put on the site. So I owe a lot to, she's now passed away, and same with her husband. And but I owe a lot to them because they certainly helped out in the early years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any idea that the site would get as big as it did?
Oh, heck no. I I had no idea. I mean, and that's why there's advertising today, because it got to a point where the hosting fees just, I couldn't foot the bill anymore. It just got so big. And I'm like, wow, I had no clue that this was going to happen. I had to keep upgrading servers and all this stuff and hosting packages. And I was finally like, I'm going to have to get some advertising on here to help pay for it, or I'm going to have to shut it down. I can't afford it. And I was able to get some advertisers, and my whole goal was just like, can I just, help pay for some of it? That was it, just so I can keep it running. And it just kept growing. And the advertisers got better, and my connections in the industry started growing, and it just kept, even today, I'm still like, wow, like, is this real? It's just a fun ride, and I'm just taking it, for whatever God gives me, and I'm happy with what I have, but it just keeps getting more and more. So, there was no big plan to like become huge. It just kind of happened that way.
I wonder if there's if we could get the data, if you could do a chart, like a graph, the growth of Bass Resource with the growth of the sales of fishing licenses. I bet there's a trend, like for going on 30 years or however long, what, 20, 30, yeah, 30.
It's been almost 30 years. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Who knows? I don't know what kind of impact. I occasionally get emails of people telling me that, that Bass Resources changed their lives, and that's just it really just blows me away. Just blows me away. I literally had one guy tell me that it kept him out of prison. So I was just shocked, and he truly meant that. So
yeah. One of the organizations I work with, I do some volunteering for. They do like a outreach for veterans and at-risk youth or whatever, and fishing is an outlet for them. It really helps them, like keep their minds straight and relaxed, and any problems they may have had overseas and, in the military or whatever, it really helps them, like with PTSD and whatnot. So I believe that, like somebody saying like, hey, fishing, kept me out of prison or something, or kept me out of trouble, that I believe it, because it is a great outlet, when you're out there, feeling when you're just out there, it's calm and you're by yourself and you're just fishing and it's serene, it's a great feeling.
Yep. Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
And me,
it's therapy.
with the website. So me and you talked, prior to this, but Bass Resource is known, I wouldn't say known more as a forum, but everybody knows Bass Resource. But the forum is king with Bass Resource. It seems like when you just talk to people, like when other members that I'm friends with, or other site sponsors who I'm associated with too, or whoever, it's known as a forum. And the communication is always a big deal because everybody wants to have input, and everything's live, with the internet. So you didn't really intend it to be a forum right off the bat. The forum just happened later on, but you have tons of content on the website that might be overlooked because of the forum. Yeah.
We have. I stopped counting after 10,000 articles on the site. And that was years ago. So I don't know how many. We have thousands and thousands of articles on the site on bass fishing. And then, of course, our YouTube channel, which we host all the videos on our site as well. There's, I don't know how many now. Over 700, I know that. And yeah, you're right. The forums are, they're going 24/7 all the time. Every time you jump on, there's, thousands of people on. So yeah, they're extremely popular. No question about it. But I think you're right. Some of the content gets overlooked. Sometimes in the posts, some people with the threads are going, and I'll say, hey, we've got like 6 articles on this topic. Take a look. And people will come back and go, oh, yeah, I forgot you got articles, and I'll show the links to it, and they'll come back and they'll go, holy crap, I should have just gone on the site and looked for it because there's my answers right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm publishing 7 days a week with articles and videos. So
Yeah.
it's a very, very aggressive publishing schedule.
I remember a long time ago. This was probably, I don't know. I would probably say 10 years ago. I'm on the phone with DVT. Shout out to Mike Lawson, by the way,
Mike,
and
yeah.
Delaware Valley Tackle. But I'm on the phone with DVT one day, and he had just built me a custom rod, and we're BSing about something, and he did a finesse rod for me at the time, and he was like, yeah, that rod would be really good for a Ned rig, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And what's a Ned rig? Like, I never heard of this. This is like, okay, what is this secret concoction you got over there? And he like sent me a link to like, I pretty sure it was I don't remember if it's an article or a post on the forum. I don't remember, but I want to say it was an article, and the article was like 5 years earlier than that. So like the Ned rig's been around for like 15 years, and it's like just now catching on the past couple years.
Yeah.
But it was on Bass Resource. Like I know for a fact that it was on Bass Resource well before it was popular.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've got, I'm fortunate that the team of writers that I have, they're all also fishermen, and they're all as well connected, if not more connected than me in the industry. And they're like always with the pros. And so they're always hearing the latest and greatest, often before anybody else. And they come to me right away. Like, hey, I've heard of this new thing. You want me to write a story about it? I'm like, yeah, let's put it up there. We just did, as a matter of fact, just 3 weeks ago, some new techniques I've never heard before. Some brand new tactics and baits that are coming out that are just like, wow, this is cool. So, yeah, we're trying to be on the cutting edge as much as possible to get the latest news out to everybody, and not just tell people, hey, this is the greatest new product, go buy it. It's here's how you use it. Here's when you use it. Here's where you use it, and that kind of stuff. That's us. We're about teaching people how to catch fish.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that. Like especially in the forums, like it's really cool, like how like the community is worked together, and I see it just like if I'm just browsing or whatever, I want to like see a topic or something, and you can see like the input that the other members have on like helping people out, like and encouraging people, especially the younger anglers, which is fantastic. I love that about the website.
Yes.
We need to get more and more kids out there fishing and off their Xboxes and whatnot. I mean,
absolutely.
So seeing that happen, live for, I've been a member for over a decade, so there's a lot of kids that probably would have never fished if it wasn't for the website, or they would have never they might have gotten into fishing, but not as much as they are now.
It's true. You're absolutely right. It's kids and even adults. Some folks and kids don't have somebody to take them out fishing and to show them how to do it. And to be able to come on the forums and ask questions of very experienced, very knowledgeable anglers around the world who will jump on and answer. Someone will post a question in the morning, and we'll have 20-something answers by the end of the day. It's just boom, 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 boom. So many people. That wealth of knowledge is invaluable, especially to someone who doesn't have those resources around them.
Yeah.
How else are they going to learn? It's one thing to watch YouTube videos and to read articles, but to be able to interact with people and ask specific questions and then follow-up questions, that is such a valuable learning tool. And like you said, the kids especially, that's one of the things I'm very, very adamant about on the forums, is that they are kid-friendly, family-friendly.
Yeah.
So we don't have any of the curse words or any of the arguing and all that kind of stuff, because, you got to think about it. You got kids here, too. And we just, adults have to act like adults around kids. That's what we do. We make sure we foster that environment so that a kid or somebody who's brand new to fishing can feel a little timid. Like, I don't know if I want to ask a question. I'm going to be, someone's going to call me an idiot, or what a dumb question that is. And they feel intimidated. But when they come on the forums and they get such a positive response, that, again, it helps bring someone new into the family and someone new to the sport, and helps them grow and become better at it.
Yeah. What's your biggest problem or your biggest pain in the rear with running the forums?
Oh, gosh. I think the biggest one is probably the one most people don't see, and that's thwarting spammers. We every day we get spammers logging on with new accounts and trying to post all kinds of bizarre stuff, and most of them are overseas stuff. But we have a system set up. I'm not going to get into it, but there's a system set up where just the moderators and I can see, and we're able to not only filter that out, but block them completely from the site before they even have a chance to post where everybody can see it. So you rarely see that, but every single day, where us moderators have our own little forum that's hidden from everybody else. And so we like to we celebrate. We have a little post up. I got one today, and it's like, yeah, just it's kind of a game we have, to see who can outdo the other and get that, who can get it the earliest.
I just thought of something funny. When a member gets dinged on the forum for something like because I got dinged once. I think it was like something to do with the flea market, and I was Franco. Jay Franco dinged me, and I'm like, come on, man, like seriously, like I whatever. And then I could picture like a mod going back to this secret forum and be like, this person asked for forgiveness, like you guys are a group of oracles or something.
It's sometimes we have conversations kind of like that. It's like, hey, what do you think? Did we mess up? Because we're human. Yeah. And so we're like, hey, I dinged this guy, and he came back and he said this and the other thing. What do you guys think? And we'll discuss it. And sometimes it's like, yeah, this guy's been around a while. Give him a break. He's every once in a while. This is a misunderstanding, or we'll have those conversations. But typically we don't talk about members. It's not like gossiping or anything like that. We don't do anything. It's more about thwarting the spammers. I got to say, we challenge each other. It's like, how quickly from the moment do they log in or create an account to how fast we can hit them, even sometimes before they can even post.
Yeah.
It's like, I created this post in 1 minute. I created this profile, and I got him 1 minute later. I mean, you can hit him while he's still typing. That's like victory.
The one thing, for the viewers at home, the one thing I really like about the forum too is the flea market. Now they have a system where they have like a plus and minus thing for transactions, because it's not like it's not eBay. You don't have a secured system in place. It's right. You're selling stuff online, but they I really like the system, because the guys, everybody takes the time to like message 00 mod like a +1 for this guy, or I bought a reel off Glenn, so +1 for Glenn. And you see somebody with a bunch of +1s, you're buying something from somebody that's reputable. I really like that system. It's a little tedious, but it works, and it gives people confidence on the forums.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that idea came from the forum members. They suggested that idea early on.
Yeah.
Because exactly that. We don't know how to, what's their rating? Someone's brand new and logged in, like, is this guy a scammer? I mean, how do you know?
Yeah.
Right? So they came up with that idea to incorporate it. And then we added a few back-end systems to check folks, IPs, things like that, make sure they're not scammers. But yeah, that system works really well, really, really well. And it's been around. We've probably been using that system for at least 15 years now.
Yeah, it's worked good. It was there when I joined a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
The flea market's very, very popular.
Yeah.
A lot more than what I expected it to be.
Yeah. No, but actually it's cool too, because I like the concept too, is if you're looking for something too, you could post up like, hey, I want to buy XYZ, and you might have a member, like, say it's like a certain color tube that they don't make anymore, and post about it, and next thing you know, somebody's like, hey, I have 10 packs of those. I'll send them to you, and you luck out and get something that's been discontinued for a while that you've really been trying to get a hold of. So
Yep.
I really like that with the forum.
Even I bought from it too. I got a whole bunch of discontinued hand poured worms from the 80s and early 90s finesse, when the hand poured plastics were really big in the California and the West Coast, and a lot of them, they're not made anymore. And there was a guy who was getting rid of them all, and I'm like, mine, I'll take those.
It's like the craze with the wiggle warts. Like it's insanity.
Yeah.
There's I never really got on the wave of the pre-Rapala wiggle warts, but the prices on these things, I see guys selling like a 3-pack of a certain color for like $500 for 3 crankbaits. That's a whole nother podcast.
That's crazy. That's insane.
Yeah.
I've seen some baits go as high as what, $200, $250 for a bait.
Yeah.
I can't imagine
some swim baits.
throwing something like that.
There's glide baits out there that are like $300-$400. And you talk to somebody that throws glide baits and be like, yeah, this is crazy. This bait's like $300, and they're like, here's a $600 one. It's like, what the? And they have 10 of them.
I can't do that.
It's like,
I can't do that. My wallet won't let me.
got like 4 houses worth of baits in your locker in your boat. Like, buy property with that.
Exactly, right?
It's insane. But with you being on the West Coast, me being on the East Coast, I was curious if there was any like bucket list fisheries up here that you've never fished that you want to fish.
All of them?
Is there anyone in particular?
Well, Cayuga just came up. We just did a big tournament there. And was it last week? Man, there's some big sacks that came out of there. And
yeah,
I was like, yeah, that would be fun to fish that lake. But actually, we talked about this earlier. I had to write some down because I'm terrible with names. I found an interesting, as bass fishermen, we find patterns. Right? So, I'm a big smallmouth fan. I love it. So, the Quaggan Webb Reservoir, the St. Lawrence River, St. Clair, Lake Erie, Lake Champlain. Oh, I would love to fish Lake Champlain. Yeah, I would love that. The Potomac, things like that. It would be a blast. I would, the smallmouth there just tanks. I would just love to tie into some. My biggest smallmouth is just under 7. And holy cow, that was fun. But I haven't been able to experience that in a long time. And you go to those lakes and they're just loaded with those pigs. Just this year I get a chance. This summer I'm going to be up in Saginaw Bay in Michigan. I'll get a chance to fish there. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I would love to come up there and fish a lot of those lakes, rivers, and reservoirs I just mentioned, because there's some excellent fishing up there. I can't name them all. There's so much good fishing in your area. I'm envious. You've got lots of opportunities there.
Yeah. I said on one of the episodes of this with another guest, because he fishes the same tour as I fish. One of my favorite fisheries is Oneida. So add Oneida to your list, because that's a killer fishery. I love that place because you could do like a little bit of everything, and it's like real bass fishing. You don't have to do like a lot of the little tiny like finesse stuff that some lakes up here you might need to do it if they're pressured. you could really just go power fishing all day, whether it's flipping docks, flipping grass, cranking, jerk bait. They eat a jerk bait year round up there. Like my home lakes in Connecticut, after like May, the jerk bait bite is dead. Like so, I would love to throw a jerk bait year round. If I was to buy a house on a lake, I'd probably buy one on Oneida.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not the biggest smallmouth, but they're getting there. I think there's some goby getting in there, and I think that's what's
Okay.
been packing some weight on these fish.
That'll do it. Yeah. 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 I mean, I love largemouth fishing too. Don't get me wrong, but something about a smallmouth, man, they just don't give up. They just don't quit, and
Yeah.
this makes it so much fun. You mentioned jerkbait. In my neck of the woods, I can fish jerkbaits all year round, and I really enjoy that. Even in the summertime, you can get out there early morning and
Yeah.
you can get over the top of a weed bed with the jerkbait and just go to town. You know.
In Oneida, they'll hit topwater in like 30 feet of water. They'll cut.
Oh,
It's awesome. Like you'd be like, is that a pod over there? Like throw the live scope over there and see a pod like in 20 feet or something. Throw a popper over there, or Rico. Doo, 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 doo. And they come flying up, grab it, and come 2 feet out of the water. It's awesome.
wow.
But that's the
They
thing.
hit it just like a Polaris missile.
That's the thing I like about Oneida, though. You can be like dead set in your mind, hey, the smallmouth aren't working for me, and go largemouth fishing, and then crack a 5-pound smallie while you're largemouth fishing, shallow. Like it's a great mix and blend of like just bass, like whether it's largemouth or smallmouth.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, you sold me.
Yeah, you don't get that in a lot of places. Like Champlain, it could be, but if they're out roaming, the smallmouth you'll catch in the shallower water are going to be smaller at certain times of the year, the 12 inchers and whatnot. But you get on Oneida on any right bite, you're going to catch either species and get a surprise.
It sounds like it's pretty clear water too.
Yeah, it's gin clear. Yeah, it's great. I love that place. I had another question for you. All right, since Major League Fishing acquired FLW, NPFL was formed, Bass is growing, and making a lot of changes. From your perspective with the forums, how do you think the industry is actually doing?
That's a good question. It depends on how you measure it. I think from a participation standpoint, it's pretty good. From a business standpoint, economically wise, it's been kind of flat. We had this big surge with COVID, and everybody and his brother headed outdoors and to participate in anything they could outdoors wise. So biking, hiking, boating, whatever. Fishing was no exception, and just had this huge surge of people hit, and no one was ready for that. Nobody at all. So oh man, the lakes got pounded. The campgrounds. I mean, right? They just got overwhelmed. But we had shortages of everything. From bass boats and bass gear to even outdoor apparel. I mean, everything. And now we're on the backside of that, where we have the surplus, but not as many people are buying at the moment because they got what they need. Yeah. So there's kind of this. It's been kind of a even pace right now. We've almost flatlined from an economic growth standpoint. Until the last 2 months, 3 months, we've seen a little bit of an increase now. It looks like it's beginning to breathe some life into it. But I think the real bright spot is the amount of people participating in fishing. There was this big thought that after all, COVID went away and people would go back to what they were doing before and they'd stop fishing, and that hasn't happened. There's been some people that have put the rod down and said goodbye, but most people are just, they found a new passion, and so there's a lot of growth there. A lot of new people to the sport in the past couple of years. So you're seeing, like the tournament you're seeing at the, you're talking the top line, top level tournaments, but all the way down to the club tournament level, you're seeing a growth in participants. And to me, that's a huge bright spot for our industry and for the sport of bass fishing. It's definitely growing. It's got some legs. I haven't seen this in decades, to be honest with you. So nobody really knows where it's going to go, where to predict it. But I think it's a real healthy indicator of the sport, and you're going to see more activities, and I think you can see more changes in tournaments, in tournament organizations, and some new organizations sprout up, and more opportunities for folks who may not have had those because they weren't, those tournaments may not have been close enough to their home or something.
Yeah.
So I expect to see a lot more growth in the coming years.
Here in Connecticut, there's one of the, I don't know if it's a club or a little organization. They do like a mixed open every year. I missed it this year because another tournament landed on the same date. So, but me and the missus have fished it the past couple of years. We missed it this year, but a lot of guys bring their kid with them or their significant other or whatever the case is, and the turnouts for those tournaments has been going up too. And I saw that over during COVID. I wish there was more of those though, like for, father son or father daughter or husband wife tournaments. I wish I seen more of that, like more of the organizations putting that on, or like even at club level with like the nation or whatever, for instead of having a co-angler from the club in the boat, if you don't have a co-angler paired, bring your kid with you.
Yeah.
Like, I would like to see that, like get more people out there. A lot of guys have kids, and get them out there fishing.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I've seen some of that over here on the West Coast too, some growth in that area, and I'd like to see more women in the sport and more opportunities for them to fish. My wife and I have fished a lot of couples tournaments. And I don't know if you know this, my wife actually fished in the professional women's circuits, two of them, for a number of years. She's a stick, man. She is good. She's real good. She's a good partner to have on team tournaments, let me tell you. She makes me look good. But also I've seen, and I think this happened during COVID, is just a lot more opportunities for shore anglers and kayak anglers, right? There's now tournaments like dock fishing tournaments. There's a big dock, and there's one of my neck of the woods where it's actually a 3-day tournament, and it's off the docks on one marina, and it's all species, and it's who catches the biggest fish of each species. And you can fish all awesome. In the middle of the night, even. You can fish all night long. And so there's guys that are just pounding, they hit it hard, and the prices are really good. But it's like those type of opportunities, it used to be just you had to have a bass boat in order to be able to do this stuff. And so now we're seeing all of these different formats come out, and to accommodate all sorts of people from all walks of life, and that's really encouraging. I love seeing that.
That's funny you said that. I was about to crack up. Me and DVT fished an open last year on Oneida, and if it was a drum tournament, he would have won by a landslide. He kept cracking drum like, it's a giant. It looks brown, and then it comes up. It's like, no, wrong species. He's like, damn. But no, he would DVT. He would love that tournament. The biggest fish of each species.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. Yeah, I think last year, I think it was an 18-pound catfish one. Was the catfish category. I don't remember. And there was a near record walleye, a near state record walleye. And the state record is like, I'm trying to remember what the record is now. Someone will correct me. I think it's 20 pounds or something. It's big. And I think it was like a 17-pounder that was caught during this tournament. So, wow. From the dock.
Yeah.
From the dock. Is that crazy? Yeah.
Me and walleye have like an eternal feud. I've been dying to eat a walleye. Like everybody says it's like the best tasting fish. I've never had
It
it.
is. Oh
And
my goodness. Uh, yeah.
when I go out to target them, because I don't know walleye fishing, I don't know trolling or anything like that. I just go bass fishing, and if I catch a walleye like in an area, because like Oneida, for example, you can see them circling. Um, I never really never crack them. Like when I'm out there, like okay, I'm gonna try to catch me a walleye today. Never catch them. But then in a tournament, crack an 8 pounder, 7 pounder. It's like, oh my god, you got to be kidding me! It happened to me like
Yeah.
2 years ago in a BFL in St. Lawrence. I go to do a drift, hook up. I'm like, oh yeah, it's on. And I'm fighting them against current and everything, and this fish feels big, and I get him up, and it's a giant walleye. I get back on the big motor, drive up, do the drift again, catch another big walleye. I'm like, I can't even put you in a live well because I got smallies in there. I got to weigh. I can't even save them for later. And the co-head had a limit, so both live wells are occupied. I'm like, this isn't gonna work out. I throw them back. It's like one day I'll get you.
Yeah. As it's funny how that works out. I've had the same experience. I've caught a lot of walleye while tournament fishing, but when I'm out there targeting them, it's like I'm lost. How come I can't catch them? I had one tournament, my partner and I, we were fishing up shallow. I mean, we were catching bass in like 12, 18 inches of water, real shallow. And the walleye were all, they were up there too. I guess there was all the bait fish and food were there. So the walleye and bass were chowing. We had to, we literally caught 10 walleye for every bass that we caught. We had to let them all go. And I remember seeing out in 35, 40 feet of water, all these walleye anglers out there trolling. We're like, guys, they're over here. I mean, it was insane.
They're probably over there catching smallies or something.
Oh,
like,
it was incredible. Yeah, I mean, this fish were all stacked in there, and it's the most wild tournament. But I've done it. Gosh, I caught a 20-pound salmon in a tournament one time. We were fishing the Columbia River, and I was throwing crankbaits, and I only had 12-pound test. And that fish he took me for a ride. And I would have cut him off, but he had my favorite crankbait on. I didn't want to lose my crankbait.
no, don't.
Because my wife's like, come on, we got to fish, because we were in a team tournament. She's like, we got to get catching. Because I was on the trolling motor just chasing this fish around, She's like, just cut him off. I'm like, but I don't want to lose my crankbait. It's crazy.
That's
but heck,
hilarious.
you've been fishing the BFLs for a while now,
Yeah.
right? Right. So what do you like the most about fishing them?
The BFLs?
Yeah.
I think the BFLs are the ultimate like working man's tournament trail. Because it's not completely local. You have to travel. You have a little bit of traveling with the division you're in or the region. And there's a carrot at the end. You don't get that with a lot of the tournament trails, and not to knock any tournament trail out there. Like everything's a niche and everything fits different people's goals.
Mm-hmm.
But you got the All-American, and that's like what spawned this podcast. Like I've been so close to making it to the All-American a few times, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'm hoping this is going to be the year. But I think you get you get the local entry fee pricing, like to enter the tournaments, and you get the opportunity for people who don't have a boat as well that want to travel and get like their feet wet in the realm of tournament fishing. I just think it's a solid format. I really like the BFLs. There's guys. I mean, not to I don't know how to say this without it not sounding bad, but like Brian Schmidt, he's a hammer. I was competing against him on the BFLs, and
Yeah.
the Potomac, the Bay, Champlain, and whatnot. So even you have somebody that's touring that can hop in, and that adds to the competitiveness of it. You know, it's
Right.
like I want to compete against the best people I can compete against. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're all competing against the fish. We're not competing against each other really, but you want it's cool. Like the whole atmosphere has been great, and our tournament directors, um, um, Steve Sizemore, Leroy Hensley, the two guys that have been up here for the Northeast have been fantastic the past several years I've been fishing them. So they run them good, and you know there might have been like one or two tournaments they should have never launched us due to the weather, but overall I'm happy with them, and I like the fact that there is a carrot. You go to a championship, qualify for it, you got to work your way up, and you have the possibility of fishing the All-American. So, and I would like to say that the All-American is one of the most prestigious tournaments there is in bass fishing. Like for decades, it was the Classic, the Forest Wood Cup, All-American, like in that order. Now it's like there's all these different championships. You got the Red Crest, you still got the Classic. The Forest Wood Cup is now the Toyota Championship. So there's like some things have been shooken up a little bit, but the All-American is still the All-American. It's all the guys that aren't on an elite tour, whether it's the elites or the Bass Pro Tour or the NPFL, all the guys that aren't on those tours, that's their opportunity to make that tournament.
Well, I think it's important that you mention that because, you know, this is not your club level tournament or your local opens. This is definitely, you know, you're in the realm of pro angling now. You're right there. And so it's a different level of competition, and it also involves greater travel and associated expenses that go with it,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you all knew about when you were getting into it, because you know you're like, this is what I want to do. So I'm sure you did your research as everybody else. But like now that you've been doing it for a while, like what are the three main things that you weren't expecting now that you've been fishing these circuits?
Three things I were not expecting from doing the BFLs.
So another way to put it is if there was somebody that wanted to do it and haven't done it yet, and their eyes were all like, oh yeah, I can get the All-American and glittering prizes, and you know, what would you tell them? Hey, you know, here's the reality of it. Here's some things you need to know going eyes wide open in, because it's work, right?
Yeah.
There's some things that you need to know about it in order to make this commitment.
I've been fairly successful like fishing locally, like out of whether it's the club level or you know the state level, whatever, with the nation. I've had success where I've had success, and I've had a lot of bad turnouts as well. You know, you can't win every tournament, obviously, but there's Connecticut is kind of a niche thing too. So like speaking of the people from Connecticut, majority of the tournaments in Connecticut are on Candlewood Lake. That lake gets pounded. You have to do a lot of finesse fishing. I'm not a finesse fisherman. I'm not like, I'll never say I'm a great finesse fisherman. I'm not. I'm a power fisherman. This gives you an opportunity at an expense to learn bass fishing at a vaster level than locally. So I'm going to, you know, this season was the Bay. They got two BFLs on Champlain this year, then Cayuga and St. Lawrence. So I'm going to have a pretty wide range of different fisheries. You know, St. Lawrence, you're dealing with current. If you get paired with a guy that wants to make the hour run out to the lake, you're in for a treat because you're going to get big smallmouth. But the you got the Bay or the Potomac, which is tidal. You have Champlain, which is a fish factory for largemouth and smallmouth. You know, you could go flipping in tie, you could go drop shotting in the inland sea, you know, and Cayuga is a kind of a funky fishery because after the spawn, a lot of those big smallmouth, they just go out deep and roam. I think the largemouth, you could still catch them in anywhere from 6 inches of water to 26 feet of water or more, you know. So it's kind of a weird fishery, but you're going to learn with all these different fisheries. You're getting a lot more exposure than just fishing your local honey hole over and over and over and over again. So
Yep.
it also at a cheaper price than if you want to dabble in, like what I'm actually on my way to is the Toyota series on Champlain. So this podcast really doesn't apply. It's more of like a side quest because this is for the All-American, but I'm also doing the Toyota, so I'm still doing the podcast. So the without having to jump into the bigger events like the Toyotas or the EQs with Bass or any of those other trails, you get like a budget friendly entry level experience at all the different fisheries in your region, you know, and a lot of that stuff will carry over when you go out of the region. Like if you want to go to St. Clair, that's a different area. What you learn on Champlain is going to help you on St. Clair. So
Yep.
it really gives you like a taste for what's to come. And I think it's the best around, you know, really for the for experience points. But to like back to the original question, 3 things: the cost. I already knew the cost was going to be a lot, but but for somebody that's a co-angler, the cost is still going to be a lot. Your best bet is to team up with somebody. I actually have a buddy that's traveling with me. He's my link for the events. He's fishing as a co. But team up with somebody. If you have a buddy in your club or something, to partner up with somebody, that's going to help you out a lot because you can split the costs on everything.
Yep.
You know, the hotels, the campgrounds, the gas, and even the food bill if you guys want to cook or something, you rent a cabin or whatever. So that can help you out. So the first year I was for several years I was traveling with the missus, and we traveled as a family, and price is expensive when you're putting the bill for, you know, multiple people, you know. Is, you know, now I got a daughter, so at some point down the road, you know, with the Toyotas or whatever I do, then there's another person tagging along, you know. So the cost and the teamwork, if you go link with somebody and have a good system in place, working with somebody as a boater or finding a local buddy that's a co or vice versa, that's going to help you out big time overall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're with somebody that you know. So when you're fishing and you're practicing for an event or something, you'll both be doing something different and kind of learn off each other about that fishery. So that's going to help you out too in the long run.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I don't really have 3 negatives, but I think the overall big picture, I think, is a good answer with that.
Yeah, you know, you'd be surprised how many at the elite level actually do that too. They travel together. Sometimes, you know, some of them they all go to campgrounds, so they got their own campers and trailers, but their wives travel with them, and so when the guys go off fishing, and the wives get together and they do their thing, and some guys will travel together and, you know, share rooms and that kind of stuff to help cut the cost down. Even at the elite level, it's, you know, it's not all roses and butterflies there either. You don't get a free ride. So, you know, I think the overall thing when people go into this level is just the amount of commitment that it takes.
Yeah.
A lot of time, not only fishing the tournaments and traveling, but preparing for the tournament, all the research that you have to do, and getting all your equipment ready, making sure it's repairing anything, you know, during the tournament season. It's very time consuming, and it takes a big commitment to follow your dream. Things don't always go as planned, and you've got to make tacks. You know, you got to change, and it's mentally hard. You know, it's draining, but that's why people at your level, you know, and above are so good at these tournaments because the focus is there.
Yeah.
It's not a weekend warrior. You know, club tournaments are fun to get together with your friends and see how you do, but you go back to your 9 to 5 after that. But when you're at this level, you're breathing, eating, living, fishing. That's what you do. You know.
Yeah. Anybody that wants to get into tournaments and like really pursue it, you have to love fishing above everything. Like you have to absolutely, like it has. You'll know it. Like the first tournament you go to fish, the switch is either gonna go on or off. And even if you go to your first tournament and win it, or you go to your first tournament and 0, you're gonna know. Because I've had tournaments that I've actually zeroed. Like, and I was like, damn, because I was like, maybe I was on them in practice, and something changed, the weather conditions or something, and it just didn't work out. And I couldn't wait to get back to that fishery. Because I was like, I want to redeem myself. And that, like, a similar, not similar, the Potomac, there was like one event that I didn't do good on, and then I couldn't wait to get back there. I was like, I got to figure this out. I got to figure this place out. I'm good on tidal fisheries. I'm pretty good on the Connecticut River. I've had a couple of W's there. Potomac fishes just like it. So went back and cracking the top 20. Went back again, cracked another top 20. I'm like one fish away from, like when you're in that close range, like 15th, 16th, like one lunker, if I got 1.5 instead of a 3, it would have made all the difference in the world. So you'll know, like when you first start into tournaments, if you want to get into the BFLs or something like that, of that level or higher, and really like go in guns blazing, you're going to know the first tournament if you want it enough. You have to, because you have to love it so much that you just want it, like, period. Like, you don't care if you lose a tournament. If you get upset that you didn't do good in the tournament, then it's not for you. Like, you have to look at every tournament you fish, every time you go out fishing for fun, as a learning experience. You can't look at it as, I mean, let's be real. We're chasing living things. It's not, they have a mind of their own. It's Mother Nature. There's 10 billion variables. What happened to me last year, I had the fish to potentially make the All-American, and my boat broke down. So you have you have to want it. Like, I know people that fish locally, if what happened to me happened to them in the championship with the boat breaking down, having those fish, they would have probably quit. Like, wow. I know, like, for a fact, like, I wouldn't do it after that. But I can't wait to get back down there. Like, and that's the James River. I love that fishery. It's like the worst fishery, but a great fishery at the same time, because it's like you catch a whole bunch of 11-inch fish, but at any given minute you can run into an 8-pounder. So yeah, it's one of those places. There's like they're either a bunch of small ones or a Florida strain. But but yeah, you have to want it. You have to, like, love fishing above everything. You can't have other hobbies. You can't have other passions. It has to be fishing, and you have to put the time in. You have to learn. And like me, I struggle with finesse fishing. I hate it. I don't have the patience. I need to constantly be doing something. That's why I use like 5-to-1 reels. I have a whole bunch of 5-to-1 reels because I want to be cranking. I can't sit there and I like dragging a jig and a Carolina rig and stuff too, but some of that stuff, it just is nerve-wracking to me. I have like ADD with fishing. I can't do it. That's why there's
I guess that was fortunate for me. I really liked, I really got into finesse fishing when it came out, when you go back in the mid 80s, when it first hit them, on the West Coast, it was a little bit earlier than that. And it was kind of a secret, West Coast thing. And learning that and by word of mouth, and it was a whole different world back then. That to me was really intriguing because it was a new way of fishing at the time. And so I got into it really heavily. And so I think I was fortunate in that now when I do power fishing, which I love doing as well, but it's just, I can even still apply a lot of what I learned with finesse fishing, with power fishing.
Yeah.
So it's interchangeable to me. I'll just as readily pick up a crankbait and a spinnerbait as I will a drop shot or a split shot. It's just whatever the fish want that day. I'm ready to go. And what to me, I have a harder time with with bad weather. Keeping that focus. It's like I can sit there and concentrate on a barely moving a split shot worm, like a quarter inch at a time movements, and thinking about what it's doing and trying to feel that bite, being so tuned into it. But if the rain is coming down and it's windy, it's like it's so hard to keep that concentration going when the elements are against you. So I find that to be more of a challenge to me than the type of fishing that I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, you can get screwed up real fast with what a bad weather change, especially if you're in a tournament situation, you practice and you're like really dialed in, and then that would throw everything off.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised though, like, because like sometimes like there could be like if they're already in a like kind of a funk, and the a bad weather comes through, or whether it's windy or heavy rains or whatever, or like I know like on the titles, can muddy up the water, and I could make a lot of changes. You can if they were already kind of in a funk or something, and you're dialed in on something, like, because I like throwing the Mojo rig, but every time I've thrown it, it was like I was already on them. I found them, and that just happened to be the bait that I had the confidence in to throw at that time, for whatever reason. It was, so it would be like I'm power fishing the Mojo rig essentially, because I'm flipping in a certain patch of grass because I know they're there, but I know this worm, they're eating it, so I'm going to use it. But I'm not sitting there finesse fishing it. So I don't know. Kind of.
Actually, the split shot rig, which some people you call it the Mojo rig, and that's because of the weight was made by a company called Mojo Weights. So some people call it the Mojo rig, but it's one of the same. That actually is a fast finesse fishing. It's a lot of people think, it's a Carolina rig. The actual way we first started fishing split shot rig was take a 3-inch grub or a 4-inch ribbon tail worm, and it's a constantly reeling it. Not at a crankbait speed, so it is a slower speed than that, but you can fan cast and cover water.
Exactly.
It's not a slow drag, slow move like some people think. It's not a drop shot technique. You're casting and covering water, so it's actually, you can move pretty quick. And I learned as a co-angler in tournaments, a lot of guys are up front fishing crankbaits. I followed up with a split shot grub, and I'd catch just as many, if not more, fish than that. Yeah. So you can fish that rig pretty quickly if you just be creative. Just depends on what you put on the hook.
Here, I'll throw out a pro tip. This is one of the things I like to do in shallow water. If you have a shallow grass bed and you're targeting it, or scattered grass beds, if it's like 2 feet to the top of the grass, I'll move. What I use is I use fluorocarbon leader, but then I'll do like a bobber stop, and then just put on like a 1/8 ounce or 3/16 ounce weight above the bobber stop, and then I can adjust the leader length on the fly. So if you're fishing the outside edges of like little small grass beds, you throw it in there, and then you can, if you're using like a chartreuse or some type of like color that you can see depending on the water clarity, or orange or cinnamon or something, it's like a finesse worm. You just bring it up and over, so you see the weight move, you see the weeds move or whatever, and the weight fall down, then just behind it comes the worm, and it follows it.
Yeah.
So you could bring it up and down over like different little globs of weeds in a bed, and that triggers a lot of bites. Once that, because you see the weight, and all of a sudden here comes a worm or whatever's going on with the fish, however they're staged, and they'll annihilate it. It's not even like it's just a subtle bite. They hit it like you're flipping.
Nice.
Like, and you're sitting there with like 7 or 8 pound test, and you're like, okay, I got 5 on. And he's like digging in the weeds.
Fantastic. I'll have to try that. That sounds awesome. That's cool, man.
This worked very well for me on a couple fisheries. But if you like, what color that was mentioning like methylate.
Yeah.
Something that pops, but it's not like too bright like a chartreuse where it's like, so you can watch it, so you can make a long cast and you can see the worm come up and over, and you can feel the weight come up and over, then the worm follows, and then you do it again. And then when that weight, because the weight's going to fall, figure you use an 1/8 ounce in like 2 feet, 3 feet of water. If you go to like 4 or 5 feet, switch to like a 3/16 or whatever, just adjust the weight to how fast you want the worm to follow. And then the worm just follows and they just strike it.
Nice.
I love that.
Nice. Nice.
It's so much fun. but then again, I had to power fish to find the fish.
Yeah. 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 That's often the case. I mean, that's another thing too. You go through an area of power fish and you follow up with finesse and go back through, you can catch a bunch more fish that way.
That's one thing
So
I
that's,
struggle with.
yeah.
Is like going through an area. I know a lot of guys are like a lot of co-anglers have been on my boat and they're like, you're crazy, like the way I fish with the trolling motor. A lot of guys will just keep it on 2 or 3 and just, you know, go down like an area. Me, I always run my trolling motor on like 8 or 10 and just do bursts, and I like reposition the boat and like, okay, maybe this angle or something, and just real quick. I want to cover water as fast as I can, but I can't like sit there and just spend 5 minutes on a weed bed. If I'm practicing and it's like a grass bite, you know, I'm looking in grass or something, I want to hit as many grass beds as I possibly can to find them.
Yeah.
So same thing if you're bed fishing, you want to find as many beds as possible. You only have so many hours to practice. So that's how I typically will cover the water, but power fishing, and then even if I'm finesse fishing, like with the Mojo rig or whatever, I'll do the same thing. I'll just keep the trolling motor up high and then just do bursts like point A, point B, point C, and just keep going around like that instead of just sitting there like real slow going around fishing.
Yep. Yeah, everybody has their own style, which is the cool thing about bass fishing is you can do it the way it works best for you and what's successful for you. And it may not work for somebody else, but there's no wrong way of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, so no one can say, "Oh, you're doing it wrong." It's like, no, this is how I do it, and it's made me really successful. You know, and sometimes you learn from other people. Like, I didn't think about doing it that way. Let me try it and see if it works for me, and you can adapt that style to your own. So that's kind of the cool thing about what I like about this sport is you're always learning, always adapting. There's always something new, and then going to new lakes and rivers and all the conditions. And it's just always. You mentioned that earlier. You know, if you go out and even if you don't do well in a tournament, if you're learning, you know, that's. I think the most successful anglers in the sport are the people that are just have an unquenchable thirst to learn new things.
Yeah, you're gonna
yeah.
You're gonna learn a lot tournament fishing, and even if you want to, there's a lot of guys too that even if you don't want to fish in tournaments, but you live in an area that you know you just don't have the accessibility to like go fishing local. You don't have a boat. You don't have all you have is little ponds, but you really want to go fishing. That's another good thing about the BFLs. You could be like, hey, it's a fishing trip for a few days.
Yeah.
You know, instead of hiring, you know, like I'm a guide in Connecticut, and maybe somebody doesn't want to hire a guide. They want to go fishing for a couple hours, you know, or for a day, or make it a 3-day event. They're going to go with a buddy who is in a club, you know, and just a lot of people could look at the BFLs as just a fishing trip and just fish one, cherry pick. Like, hey, I live in upstate New York. I've been wanting to go to Champlain for like 2 years now. I haven't had time because of work and nobody's ever around. Just hop in the tournament.
Yeah.
And you might get paired with me or somebody else that'll, you know, help you out. You know, you're up front like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, here, try throwing this and put them on some fish or something, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great learning opportunity. I fished. I was like a professional backseater for like 12 years. Like, you know, I'm not kidding you. From my, you know, late teens, you know, through college, young adult, just, you know, didn't have enough money to buy ramen noodles. I think I was, scraping by, but so I fished, whoever would take me, and that I think was one of the greatest things I could have ever done, because you learn so much from so many different people, and they all have different approaches and different ideas and different favorite lures they like to throw, and they fish the same areas different ways. And even today, I still lean on a lot of the knowledge I learned from all those people that were so nice to take me out and be generous enough to show me the ropes. That was a big deal to me. And so you're so right. As a co-angler, and even at that level, I mean, you're talking about, okay, now at that level, tournament fishing, plus you're learning from your boater and other people around you. Just a tremendous opportunity to just exponentially learn so fast. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for folks. I would definitely recommend it for sure. Oh, and also I learned how to back just about every conceivable boat and truck combination you can possibly have. Right? I mean, vans to, minivans, the small trucks, big trucks, dualies, and single axle boats, and all that stuff, single axle trailers. And now I'm so proficient at backing. It's insane. I'm so good at it, but it's from all that experience, just because I was a backseat. That's what you do. You're the one who's backing the boat down, or the trailer down, or letting them go, launching them in the morning and picking them up. You're the one backing the boat, and so you just learn. Those are some of the things you don't think about as being a co-angler, what you might learn. But there's things that go beyond just on the water time that you learn about. That's all part of bass fishing.
Yeah, I got a buddy in my club. It's always a hassle whenever like certain people get paired with them, because to go like, at the end of the day, we drop the co-angler off, they go get the truck, come back. So he has stick. So it's like half the club can't go get his truck for him.
Yeah, that's always a challenge too. So anyway, it's great fun. I'm glad you're really enjoying it. I've been watching you, following you, and I'm excited for this season for you. Doing really well, and you're gonna make it. You're gonna make it into the All-American. I'm confident of it.
I'm hoping so. I gotta do good. I got the 2 back-to-back Champlain BFLs. Then we're off to Cayuga, and then St. Lawrence, and then the regionals on the Potomac. So I think I have a good shot. Like the bay didn't work out as planned. That was tough. I don't know if you saw, like 3/4 of the field zeroed. It was a tough event. But it's that's the goal. I want to get there, and it's been my carrot for several years. And it's funny too, Glenn. If you asked me on the forums 10 years ago, Dave, would you be doing the BFLs or the Toyotas in 2023? I'd be like, you're crazy. But here I am.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You have to have the grind. Yeah, I'm 40 now, and I wish bass fishing in the 90s was as big as it was down in like Alabama and Tennessee and Florida and those places. It was never as big, because my whole life trajectory could have went a different direction had I been doing this when I was like 16, 17, 18, even high school age. But all you young kids out there, if you love bass fishing, you want to get into it, make sure you love it. But go fishing regardless.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been talking a lot about tournaments, but there's so much more to bass fishing than tournaments. Right? Just going out and, as you said earlier, relaxing on the lake, it's kind of therapy, just being out. Sometimes I stop fishing and just listen to the silence, because you're in the hustle and bustle all day long, and just to be out there and just, it's quiet. It's just calming. You're hearing the birds, or you see the birds and the wildlife and the animals, and being out in nature. This is why I'm really excited about so many people have joined the sports now since COVID, because I think a lot of those folks didn't have access to or experienced being that, in a lake all day long or a river all day long, and all the sights and sounds. And there's a lot of people that with bass fishing, you get out of it what you put into it and what you want out of it. So competitive angling is absolutely one of them, no question about it. But some folks just like to go out with their family and spend quality time with their family. And these aren't exclusive, by the way. A lot of folks do all this, also all together. But some people just they like to target trophy fish and just go trophy bass fishing. Others, they don't care what size fish they catch, as long as they catch a few. They feel it's a good day on the water. And some of them, it's more about just being on the water than catching. And I've been all those at some point in my life. And that's the cool thing about this sport. Kids, when you get into it, don't feel that you have to do it this way or do it that way, or that there's a path that you must follow. It's what you enjoy doing with it. That's what matters.
Yeah.
That's what matters. If you just a few hours on the shore casting and whining and catching a few fish, and that's what you love doing the most, then don't let anybody tell you that there's a better way to do it.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to say real quick is like newer people in fishing, and you could tell just from like seeing like Instagram posts or whatever, like people who don't, that aren't us, they're not avid anglers, they're just like beginner fishermen, is especially if you're targeting bass, how you handle the bass. You don't want to be abusive to them when you lip them. You want to keep them vertical. If they weigh a certain amount, use two hands. Like if they weigh more than 3-4 pounds, I would, maybe like 4 pounds or more. That's a lot of weight that's of their body that's pulling on their throat and their gullet.
Yeah.
The much bigger fish, if they're not, a sturdy fish, take care with the fish and how you handle them. And, you just hooked them and you fought them back to the land or the dock or to the boat or whatever. But when you're handling them, handle them with care too, with common sense, really. I see a lot of pictures of like people holding fish up and their jaw's going to be broke, because there's the one thing people need to be mindful of is the mortality rate. You might know the exact term. There's like the post-release mortality, delayed mortality. Is that what it's called?
Delayed mortality is what it's called. Yeah.
So new anglers out there, make sure you're handling the fish with care. I take a lot of pride in how I handle fish, and keep in the boat, in the live well, and make sure it's aerated. I have oxygen going. I have G-Juice, helps protect their slime coat and everything, and stops any bleeding if you get them somewhere funny with the hook. Yeah, definitely. And how you handle them, especially new anglers, you got to make sure you're handling them with care. Like you want to be able to catch them again in future generations, and one fish could be responsible for 10,000 fish. They lay a lot of eggs, and generational thing. You could quickly, you beat up a pond that's really small, and a couple of years you go back and like it's so hard to catch fish here, and you might have did something bad to the fish. So
right, yeah. Don't lay them on the ground or drag them on the grass, whatever, when you land them from the shore. And be careful where you touch them, because wherever you do, you can rub off their slime coat, and that protects them from infection. So just like you said, be cautious with handling them, and don't just throw them back in the lake, but put them in the water and let them go that way. And some people, one big tip here, some folks will put a fish in the water and they'll rock them back and forth in the water. Do not do that. You will damage their gills, or you can. I won't say it's not conclusive. I shouldn't say it's not a given, but you can damage their gills, because their gills are designed water to go one way, in their mouth and out. So when you go against the grain, you can damage their gills. So just learn some of those things. We've got a ton of that information on bassresource.com. We've been really big on teaching people on the proper ways to handle fish, and using the right chemicals in your live wells when you're tournament fishing, to help reduce delayed mortality. And in many cases, actually, the fish come out of the live well better than they were when they went in. if you handle them right. So,
Something
yeah,
something else
that's a
too.
great point. I'm so glad you brought that up, Dave.
Something else too. If you're a new co-angler to fishing tournaments and you buy additives you see online or advertised, they're all good in their own right in certain circumstances. Always check with your boater. If you're not sure, check with your boater. If he has an oxygenator, you can't use certain chemicals for the fish. Like I believe Sure Life is one of them. You can't use that with the oxygenator.
That is a myth.
It is?
I'm
Oh my
absolutely
God.
100% positive that is a myth. The
Really?
reason why is I know Tony Gergley personally. He's the one who invented it. He and I have been friends for a couple decades now. And that bothers the heck out of him. People think that's the case. It's not.
That's been like
You
the
can, yes, catch and release is absolutely compatible. Sure-Life products are completely compatible with oxygenators. As a matter of fact, we actually did a video, he and I, to debunk that myth. It's like, let's let everybody know somehow it got started as a rumor somewhere. I don't know how, but it started to get passed around as fact. But nope, that's a wives' tale.
is there a different one that's not compatible with oxygenators and maybe I just misspoke? Or is it
There was one on the market that was like that. It's no longer on the market, but it kind of got
there's
applied.
something
I think I think that myth may have got applied because there was one on the market that did that. It wasn't a Sure Life product, and people thought all additives were like that. And then
no.
certain additives would market, oh yeah, we're compatible. And
Yeah.
Sure Life has not marketed, yes, we're compatible. So people think that it's not, but no, it is absolutely compatible with their oxygenators. That's a hard word to say.
Oxygenator. No,
Yes.
so but because there was something about like the salinity in one of the chemicals. Um, so if there was a myth that it's debunked that it was Sure Life or Catch and
Right.
Release, whatever, then I'm just speaking on that. Then, but because I actually use it. Hold on. I'm in the truck.
Yeah, I
Walls
use
back
Sure
there.
Life
I can't do it.
products. I use Sure Life products, and it's not because I know Tony. Actually, I've been using Sure Life before I met Tony. But I use them because they flat out work.
Yeah.
And I used two of them. One's called Please Release Me. The other's called Catch and Release. Please Release Me is for when the fish is bleeding.
Okay.
So it's kind of like first aid medic. The Catch and Release formula is what you use just as a regular routine additive in your live well.
Yeah.
And it's got all of these, I don't know the whole proprietary makeup of it, but yeah, it helps with their coating. It helps with antibiotics in it. It actually has a little bit of a tranquilizer in it, which calms the fish down so they don't beat themselves up. There's another product on the market that actually has garlic in it. You can tell. You open up the cap, you'll sniff it. You may know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention the name, but garlic actually burns their gills. And what it does is it makes the fish really active and lively and just go crazy because they're in pain. But the angler will open up and say, hey, the fish are lively, and they take them to the weigh in, and the fish is bouncing around. They think, boy, this additive works great. Well, that has actually been proven to contribute to delayed mortality, that particular product.
Wow.
So the Please Release Me formula and the Catch and Release formula has that tranquilizer to sedate them, calm them down, so they don't have any adverse effects after you release them.
I got a question. You might know because you talk to people. Is there any studies or anything on people who use this stuff in tournaments? Because there's people out there that may catch fish to eat them. If I pump my live well with some additive, regardless what brand it is, and then somebody later on catches that fish, a couple weeks later, takes it home, fillets it, makes some sandwiches. Is there any studies on the effect it could do anything under our
There
consumption?
has been. Well, I can only speak from what Tony's told me. And just so you know, Tony is, he's got a PhD in chemistry, and he was the first guy to create an additive product for actually it was for aquariums, for pet shops, to keep the fish alive.
Really?
And he was like the, the seventh vendor ever to do business with Walmart, and he still is the number one for transporting fish for aquariums and for pet stores. And anyway, so he's got lots of experience and knowledge in this stuff. This guy's way above my pay grade as far as knowledge. But what he told me is, it's a way to think about it is, it's kind of like you taking vitamins and supplements for yourself, right? It improves your health, and that's what these additives do. The right ones do, is improves the health of the fishery. And in some cases, fish weren't in, is what I alluded to before. They're in better shape when they come out alive than when they went in, because these additives can help. I wouldn't call them it's not like snake oil where it's going to cure if they got a disease.
Yeah.
But if they aren't in the best of condition, it can improve their health. So there hasn't been any adverse effects as far as if someone eats a fish that's been treated with these chemicals. If anything, it's a better fish for them.
Gotcha. I'm glad you cleared that up, because I've been told that by multiple people, what we were just speaking about, and I've always thought that. So because I use the product, but I don't run the oxygenators when I use that. It depends
Go
on
ahead.
the fishery.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's a thorn in his side. He brings up every once in a while, and you can look it up on our YouTube channel. You'll see it. I think it's called The Truth About Live Well Additives. I think that's what the video is called. But it's Tony talking about this very thing.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, we did it a few years ago.
Awesome.
It's fun. The people I get to meet in this industry are so passionate about what they do and so good at what they do, and you learn so much. And Tony's one example. I've learned more about fish care than I ever thought there was even available. Just you sit down and talk to him. He's like, you try to be a sponge just to learn everything. But I got the pleasure of meeting Doug Hannon before he passed away, and I actually, he invited me to a party of his, and we hung out for a long time. And his mind, the way it thinks, is just not like most people. He's an inventor, a creative person, and he's the one that came up with the wedge prop on the trolling motors, the weedless props. Yeah. It came to him in a dream, believe it or not. And Big O, Steve Parks, who started Ragetail and is the inventor of all the Ragetail baits. The original, that flange that makes the bait move so much, he'd been thinking for years, trying to figure out how, I don't know how long, I shouldn't say years, but he'd been trying to figure out how to get more action out of the tail. And one day, while talking to a friend of his over a beer at a bar, he had the beer cap, and he was pressing down on the middle of the beer cap and all the way around it, made a big dent in the top of the beer cap. And when he got done talking to his friend, he looked at it and he went, I wonder if I could use that for a mold. And he did. He used it as a mold. And if you look at the original Rage tails out there, that tail at the end of it, you take a beer cap and it perfectly fits that tail.
Oh,
because he made it. That's how we found out about how to make it wiggle more, is that flange. And that's his first baits came out like that. So you learn all kinds of stories like that. Yeah, I ended up sitting down to Bill Dance and to talk to him for an hour or two. What a storyteller! It's so much fun. But I can go on and on and on. It's unbelievable, all the people in the industry, and you learn so much from them. And I've just been very, very lucky and blessed to be able to have these conversations. But you learn a lot of stuff like this, and it's so much fun.
There's a lady that's local to the Northeast, Debbie something. Sorry, I apologize if you see this, but she'll show up to like some tournaments, like up at St. Lawrence and Champlain and whatnot, and sell fizzing kits. I don't know how you feel about fizzing, but like you have people out there that are like so passionate about the fisheries and the sport, they go out of their way to educate anglers on fizzing. And, it's a great thing. You know, there's a lot of ambassadors in the sport from all walks of life that have all different roles to make the fisheries better and encourage fishing and good fish handling practices, the whole nine.
I had Doug Hannon was like that, and I was fortunate. He made a video on how to fizz bass, and he gave it to me. He said, "Here, I want you to put this on your site. I want everybody to know about it. I want everybody to see it." So it's still there today. It's on our YouTube channel. Just look up how to fizz a bass with Doug Hannon, and he goes step by step exactly how to do it. And that's exactly to this day how I fizz bass. So it works. It's a great tutorial. He did a great job of explaining, because, like you said, they're so passionate. They'll go out of their way to show people exactly how to do that. And Doug was one of those people.
Yeah, it's helped me out, like learning that. I went from I'm not master at it, but I'm pretty efficient at doing it and releasing the air under the water.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
and not all needles are created equal either. Like if you're watching this,
true.
You want the finer ones, not the big ones. I've seen some for sale at like different stores or tackle shops, and I'm like, no, that's gonna leave a big wound. They're like thick gauge needles, and you don't want that.
Well, the hard thing about the thinner ones is they get clogged easier, so you got to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But
after you use them, clean them. A lot of them will come with like some type of little thing that goes in them. Make sure you clean it in and out, because you'll be sitting there, and don't leave it in there either. Like when you store it, let it dry, because I've had one. I don't think I went to fizz the fish yet.
I know where you're going with this.
And it rusted inside, and I couldn't get the thing out.
Yeah.
It like seized to the inside of the needle.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I got it. Going back to Tony, he goes to the drugstore and he buys a bunch of those needles, and he just hands them out to folks. Here, before a tournament, here, use them. So, and he'll teach people too. So, you don't have to go to a tackle store to get them. You can go to your local drugstore and get the needles. So. Anyway, I'm rambling. It's been great talking to you, Dave. Really has. And as always, I enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you hopping on. It was great to have you on as a guest and ambassador of the sport. I love the website. Been a member, proud member for a long time, and look forward to many more years of Bass Resource content and activity on the forums.
I look forward to watching you as you progress through the BFL and onward. Yeah. So it's been great having you on the forums. Just don't forget about us little people when you become famous.
Working on it. Don't jinx me either. No, in all seriousness, between the BFLs and the Toyotas and all the other tournaments I fish, I love the sport so much. And especially with the guiding servicing, taking people fishing, it's fantastic. I love being on the water. My family loves being on the water, so it's a win-win. And shout out to the family too, because they're my support system. You got to have, that's another plus too we didn't talk about. Not going to get into it, but having a good support system, a structure, is always a big plus. But yeah, but we'll sign off, I guess. We'll be probably invite you back on at some point.
Sure. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn. And all the Bass Resource guys, I'll see you guys around on the forums. Anybody that's watching, so look forward to talking to you guys.
All right. Thank you so much. You have a good evening.
You too, Glenn.
All right.
Later.
Bye.